Hi guys and welcome back to a new video. In today's video, I want to talk about the Collector's Bounty event, and in particular I want to talk about what could be the future for this pretty cool event. So for those of you who missed it, basically the Collector's Bounty event was this event that allowed you to get a plus 5% drop chance for all the different mounts from Legacy, Dungeons and Raids from any expansions before Dragonflight. And during this event, all the different bosses from Dungeons and Raids would also drop double the amount of items that they usually drop. So basically it was the perfect event for collectors to get tons of different rare cosmetics, transmog sets and mounts that maybe they never were able to get before that. And so this event only lasted for a month, and right now Blizzard didn't communicate really anything regarding the future of this event. Maybe this will be a one-time event that never will happen again, but I think seeing how popular it was, I'm sure Blizzard will probably try to bring it back in some ways in the future. So the first possibility is for Blizzard to make this event recurrent for each expansion, and so it means that once per expansion you will be able to get the Collector's Bounty event, and each time they will add one of the Legacy expansions. So for instance, it means that right now in the War Within it stopped at Dragonflight, and with Midnight we will be able to now get the Collector's Bounty event, and this time it will also add all the different dungeons and raids from Dragonflight, and so on and so on. So that might be something that Blizzard will do, and it would mean that you will be able to get this event once every 2 years. So at least like that, if you're really unlucky in getting some of the different transmogs or mounts from all these different Legacy dungeons and raids, you will be able once per expansion to have 1 month where you can really go on and try to get all of them when the event is on. But seeing how popular this event was and how many players came back for this event, I'm not sure if Blizzard is really gonna wait 2 years in order to bring it back, and maybe they will decide to bring it back even before that. My personal thinking is that maybe even before the release of Midnight, when they will also have Legion Remix, Blizzard is gonna bring it back at some point. So like that, between the different expansions, when there's maybe gonna have a little bit less content, players will be able to really focus on trying to get all the different missing mounts and transmog that they need. And I think overall, they're probably gonna use this event very often as a filler content that will allow players to just collect everything. Now, the second thing that I could see happen is that Blizzard will bring back this event, maybe as I mentioned before the release of Midnight or sometimes during Midnight, but rather than having all the different mounts from dungeons and raids from Legacy expansions being more easy to get, they will this time target all the different mounts that are from rare mobs and from other sources from the open world. So at least like that, you will now be able to target all these other mounts and all these other transmogs rather than the ones from the different bosses inside of dungeons and raids. So here, just to add a few examples from Battle for Azeroth, you would have all these different mounts right here. You would also have the different mounts from the world bosses. And basically, you would really have tons of these different mounts that would be added into the Collector's Bounty event. Also, for some of the different mounts that depend on rare spawns, so I'm thinking for instance of the Time Lost Proto Drake or maybe the Void Talon of the Dark Star, instead of having the mount having an increased drop rate, because here it's already 100%, maybe they will just increase the spawn rate of the different rares. So really that's something that I think could work really well as well, especially because right now players already got quite a lot of the different mounts from the different dungeons and raids, and at least like that players will be able to do even more things in the open world and also to go after even more transmog items and all of that. So personally I think that could be a really good way to still have this event not happen in 2 years, but have it pretty early on. And like that, players will still be really hyped because all the different mounts and transmogs you will be able to get this time will be different than the first one. And of course, when it comes to the transmogs, it might be a little bit more challenging because there's so many transmogs dropping from so many different sources. but I'm sure that's something that Blizzard could figure out and something that again players might really enjoy. Now, the third thing that I think would make sense in order for the Collector's Bounty event to be added kind of permanently to the game is to link it to each of the different Timewalking events that we have. So right now, for instance, we have the Battle for Azeroth Timewalking event up, and as you can see, we already have this buff right here that increase your reputation gains from all the different quests and combat by 50% for the different factions of Battle for Azeroth. And what they could simply do is then also add the Collector's Bounty event for Battle for Azeroth, where basically all the different mounts from dungeons and raids from this specific expansion during the week where the Timewalking event is up will have the increased drop rate. And if they want, they can maybe make it a little bit less impactful, maybe like less than 5%. But I think that's something that would really make sense, because then it means that during that week, players will be incentivized to go and do all the different dungeons and raids from this specific expansion. And that's something that will only last for a week, so it's not really going to increase so much the amount of things you can do. And as we now have some of these different Timewalking events for almost all the legacy expansions, we're just missing Shadowlands and Dragonflight. But I think that's something that really would boost the participation of players into the event. And as the different Timewalking events are not happening all the time, I think again that would make a lot of sense. And especially knowing that we already have the increased reputation gains, which is also very OP and also something that allows you to get tons of different mounts and rewards, I really don't see why we can't have also the Collector's Bounty buff for this specific event and for these different expansions. So these are really my main thoughts when it comes to the Collector's Bounty event and how Blizzard might be able to bring it back in the future. I really think that this event was really popular and something that players really enjoyed, even though I understand why some people might have not liked it a lot, knowing that they farmed everything before it became a little bit easier. But still, I think a majority of the player base was really happy with this event, and so that's why I really don't think Blizzard will just not have it again in the future and will not use this opportunity to bring back even more players, when especially they need to fill out a little bit the gaps between major patches and major expansions. So let me know in the comments what you think about what might be the future of the Collector's Bounty event, and again, if you were happy or not overall with the event. I will be back very soon with more guides and more videos, and in the meantime, I wish you all a great day. Bye!